Ryan Manchee here with Basis Technologies. I am excited to be joined by Paul Gelb, who runs all of media activation for Bayer. Paul, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Excited to chat today.
Yeah, so I'd love to hear the amazing things that you all are doing at Bayer, which we'll get to. Let's talk about the last several years. I've got to imagine there's been enormous challenges that your team has faced, that you face, that the organization's faced. Can you talk about maybe how you work to overcome some of those challenges and maybe any lessons learned that you're applying towards 2023 and the years ahead?
Yeah, I think the past few years has been as much about challenges as it is about opportunities to work for just iconic health brands during and through a pandemic. The ability to really bring our media to so many different digital channels, do things with creative that is personalized in ways that we've never done before to really fulfill the mission of Bayer, which is to improve health outcomes. So it's been a transformation. So a lot of change, and we changed our challenges along the way, but I don't think there's any more exciting time where you could actually be that close to business, delivering on that sort of mission in the world we live in today.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. And so, as you're running media activation and you've got a team there, I imagine a sizable team to be able to support that. I'm interested in how things have evolved through the years as that team has been built up, as you've brought in new capabilities, you've brought in new talent, you've amped up skills. Um, what does that look like? How do you continue to partner with agencies? What does that model kind of look like? There's a big trend around in-housing. Is that what you call it? And where have you seen success there?
We're a centralized function for ad buying and all of our media partnerships. When we started, it was really just me on the ad buying side, creating a different way of buying things, platform, process, really creating that sort of legwork and change and expectations for the organization, and then was able to bring in just amazing talent. That's what really right now is one of the most exciting things for me, is that we're now doing things and doing tests and working on initiatives that I never would have thought of by myself. So I think the biggest thing is that as the team has grown, we've created a way and a system and a process for more tests, more learning, more ideas to actually move forward than we ever had before, and doing it in a really fast way, holding hands with not only the brands, but now increasingly the sales and the commercial side of the org as retail media has really grown as well. So I think the most exciting thing, the most different thing is that we're now working on things that I never would have thought of, where when I came here, there's very specific things of the career that was everywhere but the brand before I started at Bayer, where I knew some of the things I wanted to do. But today is more exciting because it's a lot of surprise and a lot of fun to actually impact the business through that.
Yeah.
We are working with our media agency on linear, very coordinated planning way, starting very early in the process in a way that we probably never collaborated before. We are doing the CTV buying and doing that part of the upfronts, but the way that we're just walking hand in hand and then bringing an integrated concept approach to the brands is something that was not necessarily there. It was a bit more siloed when we started across the channels.
Yeah. What other types of efficiencies have you and the kind of larger Bayer organization realized through that kind of in-house media buying, at least for the digital media side of it? Is it around brand safety? Is it about being able to be more agile and move faster, or those kind of the things? Or there's other aspects that you found some benefits from?
We hired a lot of very technical, incredibly smart traders that understood the technology, the platforms that they're working on, that had years of experience on their channel, really understood the little nuances, just that knowledge of how these marketplaces work, the rules, what you do in the system, and how that's going to affect still buying the same inventory, same audience, but just making sure you are acting in a way that aligns with how these technologies work has been a huge impact in terms of efficiency. We've also just been able to scale what we're doing, where we sell products where we're trying to improve health outcomes and drive awareness about products that are going to improve people's health. So our potential audiences are just enormous. So I think we found channel after channel now in digital where we have an enormous scale where you can reach 60, 90, 100 million people. Once you have that ability, there's a tons of operational efficiencies.
So when you think about the audiences, and I feel like this has to be one of the benefits, that the level of sophistication, the feedback that you can provide even to other areas of the organization. Massive total audience, but then even more detailed segmentation for the various brands, the different audiences, and how you can activate on that. What kind of lessons have you learned around that? Have you been able to share more of that across the organization, even beyond just maybe just within the marketing function?
And I think the really great thing about personalization and finding the right creative that really just connects and breaks through with an audience is something that everyone can relate to. So it's a really easy story. You don't have to be that technical. Everyone's had that experience where something has spoken to them. This brand was focusing on something that was around their need, around their passion, et cetera. So um, everyone has sort of, I think, understood that and seen that, hey, the world is made up of a lot of those different interests and differences. And so, yes, we do scale, but whenever we could have something that's more relevant, more personalized, you want to do that. I think we also know that there's opportunities where you don't want to miss out on a shared experience. There's something to be said, whether it's the Super Bowl, March Madness was about to happen, or just being part of South by Southwest, where there's a line on every quarter for everything. That shared experience with a brand is something that you also want to make sure you're having as well. And if it's really good creative and it resonates, there are some things that will resonate with a very large audience. But there are some things where you can take that thing that's unique, that message, that value proposition that really is about that brand, and iterate it so that it actually is more relevant to each segment of consumer.
That's great. And so there are channels that are almost considered emerging channels, but the kind of predecessor has been around for a long time. So you talked about CTV, or you talk about digital out of home. There are traditional out of home channels. It's been there for a long time. TV has been around for what 70 plus years. What excites you about those kind of emerging opportunities, these emerging channels, and how are you realizing success with those?
I think over the last 10 plus years, having worked on mobile, programmatic, some of these huge trends, the one thing that I realized is that not everything changes and not everything stays the same.
Yeah.
And so what's really exciting is that there is this experience, this touch point with the consumer, big screen, lean back while you're watching TV. But now there are things like frequency control. Now there are things where you could actually have a different ad for a different audience. There are ways to optimize and really understand what you're buying in more real time versus a marketing mix model that might happen once a year. So you're combining sort of the best of both worlds, and the work that you're seeing in terms of the platforms and how they're partnering with the major networks. I think last year there's a huge shift of budget and interest as consumers were consuming streaming media in larger and larger numbers. This year, you're seeing the networks and the platforms are just more prepared for it. And so putting those things all together with everyone sort of leaned in and ready to go, couldn't be more excited than going to the upfronts and what can happen on TV this year. Similarly, there's only so much out of home inventory. When you're walking around, it's also a huge visual. There's so much that you can do with it in terms of location, that context. To do that and not just have it something where you might have that ad up there for months because no one took it down. Now there could be dynamic and digital ads messaging that you can test and learn and also have a huge impact. It could be right by the store, it could be by a healthcare provider or an experience like a sports stadium. There's so many ways to express a campaign that can work with out of home now that you couldn't do before.
It's amazing. Yeah. And I feel like the kind of increased digitization, and we talk about digital transformation, what's happening with those different channels, and then how that's opening up opportunities for amazing brands like Bayer and your team to be able to go through and find increased efficiencies through more automation. And I think as much as there's talk about AI, right, we're talking about how we're finding increased efficiencies, increased ways to be able to do what we know that we want to do that much more effective. So I love it. It's great. One last question for you, Paul. If I had a magic wand and I gave it to you, and you got to wave that magic wand and change one thing within your business, within the industry, what's that one thing you would change?
So I'm a big Knicks fan, and our coach has a saying that winning is more fun than fun is fun. And so I think right now there's an unprecedented opportunity for the marketing part of the organization to have an impact on the business, on consumers. And at times there is a tendency to chase after a trend or the sexiest thing. But I think there is an enormous reward and sense of purpose that you give your team, people working on it, and also just having an impact on your colleagues, the mission for your brand, the consumers. that you have to have a passion for, and have that drive the business in ways that you've never done before. And so for me, I think the more we could talk about how marketing can really drive the objective versus just the latest trend and what are people going to use it or they're not. But I think that taking on this new role and the opportunity there after going through years and years where there were shorter terms for the CMO, countless questions about does marketing work, which marketing works. I think we know so much more now. It'd be great to just have everyone more excited about that, not worried about is it this part of the funnel, that part of the funnel, but wow, we're marketers and we actually get to impact a business in ways that only finance or product development had before.
I love it. I love it. Focus on what works because it works,
Yes.
right? Yeah, I love it. Great. Paul, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate your time, appreciate your insights and responses. And yeah, thank you.
And thank you for having me.